We are so excited to have Ryan Hanley with us today. He is one of the original insurance thought leaders, and I think I listened to my first insurance podcast, and it was Ryan. So we're very excited to have you with us. I'm going to read your bio, and we just really appreciate you stopping by. Ryan Hanley is a marketing strategist, speaker, and insurance industry thought leader known for helping professionals and organizations grow through content, trust, and digital relationship building. He is the founder of Rogue Risk and has held executive roles focused on digital strategy and innovation within the insurance industry. Ryan is widely recognized for his emphasis on authenticity in marketing, personal brand development, and using content as a long-term trust engine rather than a short-term lead tactic. Through his speeches, writing, and podcasting, and his TED Talk, Ryan challenges traditional sales models by advocating for transparency, consistency, and human connection in a digital-first world. His core message centers on building trust at scale, owning your voice, and creating value through ideas before transactions. Jason, welcome with me here, Ryan Hanley.
Ryan, welcome to the TMG People First podcast.
All right, Ryan, we have two traditions we start with. Number one is we input all the information we have on you, and there's a lot out there on the web since you've been very active for years. And we say, give us a walk-up song for Ryan. What would be Ryan's walk-up song, okay? And your walk-up song, this is a good one. I think you're going to like this one. Yeah. Believer, Imagine Dragons.
Okay.
Is that track?
Yeah. I was thinking more like, I was hoping AI pulled out like Wu-Tang or some 90s gangster rap, something like that. But no, that's a good one too. That gets you jacked up.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, for sure.
There's certainly worse. It wasn't Taylor Swift. So.
Yeah, I know. There you go.
For sure. Hey, Ryan, what's the first thing you think about when you wake up?
Oh, how hungover am I? No, I have a pretty diligent routine that I've created. So I won't even say that I'm like thinking about something, but I'm kind of executing a routine that I've found that as often as I can get through that routine, I can launch into the day very positively. Good headspace, good energy, kind of ready to get after it with some work already done. So I'm not necessarily thinking about a particular thing. And actually, it's a good question because the reframe of that, if we go backwards, if I do have something on my brain when I wake up, that probably means I'm over-indexing it and feeling some stress and anxiety around that particular topic. And that's usually an indicator that I have a problem to solve somewhere. Whether I procrastinate on it or choose to solve it is a different problem. But on a standard good day, I'm just kind of executing my routine and, kind of getting through that because that's how if I can get through it on a consistent basis, man, I'm firing on all cylinders when it gets to game time during the day.
Yeah, it's a great answer. Can I ask him a few questions first here, Jason?
Away.
So, Ryan, I've listened to you for a long time, and I want to get your perspective. When did you start to see the shift of social media for insurance advisors or any advisor out there? Because you were well before COVID on personal branding, and I want to get your thoughts. When did you see it and lean into it?
Yeah, so probably 2010, I'd say. But it wasn't like I saw a trend and jumped on it. How I got introduced to, I'll just broad stroke it, digital and digital content, digital marketing in general, was out of necessity. So I started selling insurance. Now my ex-wife, but my wife and I at the time, we were living in New York City. Her mom got sick, and we wanted to be home, which is Albany, New York. We were living in New York City. Sorry, if you're in the Northeast, New York City is just the city. So we were living in New York City, and her mom got sick, and we wanted to be home, which is Albany, New York, which is about 2.5 hours north of New York City. We wanted to be home for that. So we kind of packed up our lives in New York, and we moved back to Albany. Her dad owns still to this day an independent insurance agency called the Murray Group. And I think he saw the writing on the wall and didn't want his little girl to be married to a bum. So he kind of, and this is completely legitimate. I'm I'm not putting any flair in this, but he literally pulled me out of a Christmas party and pulled me into like his office in his house with, it's like the classic wood paneled, high leatherback chairs, like the desk that's so narrow that you're like, how does anybody do any work on this thing? Like that kind of classic home office. And he sits in a chair, I sit in a chair facing each other. His son, who also, my would-be brother-in-law, is standing behind him, like over his shoulder. It's like literally out of a mafia scene, but insurance. And he essentially, makes me an offer I can't refuse. He's essentially like, oh, I heard you're looking for jobs. Well, yeah, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. And I had been mostly in accounting and consulting up until that point. And so he says, I want you to come sell insurance for the Murray Group. And I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to be at that time. And I knew at that time that I wanted to marry his daughter. And I said, screw it, let's go. So I started selling insurance, and I was really, really bad at it, like really bad. 2 years in, I'm getting to answer your question. So 2 years in, ish, right around that time, my father-in-law calls me into his office and fires me. And that is not a pleasant experience. And I did what any young, self-respecting young man would do. I literally got down on my knees and was like, his name's Jim. Jim, please do not fire me. Like, I don't want to go home and have that conversation with your little girl. You don't want her calling you. Like, there's got to be a way to work around this. And he basically, I don't think he had fully thought out the ramifications of firing me. My numbers certainly warranted it at the time, but I don't think he had thought about the second level ramifications. So I could see him thinking, and finally he's like, all right, I'm going to give you 6 months, but you got to get your shit together. You got to turn this around. And I knew that classic. So this is 2009-ish.
By the way, Ryan, that may have been your best sales job right there, right?
Yeah. I can sell. Just at that time, I could not. You know what it was? And this was really good lesson for me later in my career as I become an executive, have my own teams, have my own agency, is that call reluctance, cold calling reluctance that I had while it was terrorizing at the time. I'm glad that I went through it because I felt what it was like to literally have a physical reaction to picking up the phone. And when, at the time I couldn't necessarily articulate this, but in looking back, I could dissect the reasons. I wasn't confident enough in the product. I hadn't had enough at-bats. I didn't understand how to properly position the transformation of what they have today to what it would be like to move over. So I didn't have these base concepts in my head. I didn't own them. I hadn't read enough policy forms. I didn't understand the product well enough, all these things. So when I would go to pick up the phone to cold call or walk into a business, it was pure fear. All that was going on in my head is you're interrupting this person's life. They're going to hate you. They're going to take a picture of you and put it on their front door and tell everybody you're a jerk. You know what I mean? You just create all these crazy scenarios in your head. However, when I was forced with being fired by my father-in-law, I knew I had to find another way. And this is right when LinkedIn and blogging and these kind of things are starting to come up and bubble up. Now, incredibly early relative to the insurance industry, but we obviously operate about 10 years behind from a technological and philosophical standpoint. So it makes it very easy to win in insurance. Just look at what anyone else is doing and apply it to our space, and you'll be way out ahead of everyone else. It's amazing.
That's a great. That's so true.
Literally my entire career has been stealing from other industries and applying it to insurance. That's literally been my entire career. So I started, I went out on LinkedIn and I'm like, okay, there's legitimate business people out here. What are they doing? And I saw them commenting on each other's posts and connecting with each other. And I said, well, what if now today, this is Marcus Sheridan has a great book about this. This is kind of not a novel idea today, but at the time I said, well, I've been in the business for almost 3 years at this point, and I don't know crap about insurance. How do my customers know anything about this product. So I just started taking the questions that I would get during sales calls, and I would take whatever the question was, and I'd use the question for the title of a blog post, and then I would just answer the question in 750 to 1,000 words. And I just did that like 3 or 4 times a week. And it was great because it was a good way for me to justify not cold calling, because I hated that, right? So I was putting all this stuff out there. And I'll wrap up with this, because this is, I think, a very important point on the timing of using digital as a way to grow your business. So for the first, so I start blogging, and, at first it's nothing. And then you start to get a little bit of traffic and a little more. And not that I was getting tons, but enough, enough to make the effort to continue. And 3 months go by, nothing in terms of calls, inbound leads. 6 months go by, nothing. 9 months, I'm like, I'm now on like an extension period of not getting fired. I was also hustling in some other places too to try to get some business, but like I was kind of put all my eggs, for better or for worse, in this online inbound marketing bucket.
Sure.
And 9 months, so we're about 9 months, 3 months over the initial 6 months that he had given me. So I'm in danger territory, and I get a phone call. Beep. This is Ryan. There's a woman on the phone for you, line 3 or whatever it was. So I pick it up. Hey, this is Ryan Hanley. How can I help you? And this is when I was sold. This is the light bulb lock-in moment that literally changed the course of my career from whatever I would have been to what I am today. So this woman's name is Virginia. She says, "Hi, my name's Virginia. You don't know me. I live in Clifton Park," which most people will not know, but that's about 25 minutes from our office. So back in those days, that was a big leap for someone to do business with someone almost 30 minutes away. Like, she would have never driven by our office. Like, there's plenty of insurance agencies between where she is and where we are. So it's not like we were just an easy way to get it to reach out to us. So I said, "Okay, great. How can I help?" And she goes, "Well, I've been reading your blog for about 3 months now, and I want you to help me with my insurance. I'm going to send you everything I have, review it, tell me what I need, and I'll sign up with you." And I go, "Oh, you're looking for a quote?" And she goes, "No, I am not looking for a quote." She goes, "I'm going to send you what I have. I want you to make sure that I have everything I need. If there's anything I don't need, I want you to package it all up, send it back to me. I'll sign it and send you a check. I want to do business with you." And the light bulb moment for me was Virginia was already sold before she ever picked up the phone. I didn't have to sell anymore. Like, if I do my job as an inbound and content marketer, I don't have to sell. The people are already sold. This is how we grew Rogue Risk as fast as we did, was because we weren't selling. We were affirming that they had made the right decision in picking up the phone and calling us, and then just taking an order. And I know that the idea of taking an order in our industry is an enormous ego hit. There are people listening to this right now that are going, "I don't take orders. I'm a trusted advisor." Well, first, if you have to put the word trusted in your name, you're not. And 2,
Couldn't agree more.
Like, that's your ego talking. It doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, that's a fine way. Go out, hunt, kill, club them, drive them back. If you can make a great living and you're happy doing that, God bless you. I am not knocking cold calling at all. It didn't work for me. And what inbound allowed me to do was showcase my knowledge and expertise through content, and then be a true advisor. And I'm okay being an order taker, because all I really want to do is cash checks. So I don't care what you call me. If you're doing business with me and I'm getting paid, that stuff doesn't mess me up. So, like, I think it's okay to be an order taker, particularly if you have done a good job in your content and inbound marketing. And I'll stop there.
It's a lot there, Jason. Where do you want to go?
So, mindset. So that was kind of your inflection point right there, right? And you started to generate. I'm taking a term from Guffey, velocity, but you started to gain some velocity around that, removing the friction point from that the self fear, or that irrational fear, as I call it. But it still was fear to you, kind of moving in that direction. From that point forward, how did you begin to execute and grow from that point forward, right? And not regress back to the mean.
So I get that call from Virginia, and then Virginia wasn't the last one. So now the phone's starting to ring on a regular basis, maybe 1 or 2 a week, 2 or 3 a week, etc. And I just keep creating content. And the beauty of our industry is that we're the worst marketers in the world. I mean, horrible, on average, D-minus marketers. So even if you have an inkling of marketing chops, you can just dominate your competition. So within, by the inside of a year, I owned every major keyword in both personal and commercial insurance within a 50-mile radius of our agency. I mean, I was literally getting hate messages from other agencies in the area. Because remember, this is 2011, 2012. Like, the internet is still magic to most people in the world, let alone insurance professionals at that time. So they didn't understand what I was doing. They didn't understand SEO. They didn't understand any of that kind of stuff. And I'm getting literally hate messages because it was Murray Group Insurance Services, everything. We owned all of it. So I just kept creating content. Okay.
So you're saying that trust, like the trust part was built before the transaction, right? So talk to me about that. How are you, content is one thing, but the relevant content. So how are you measuring that trust content as you're bringing it out to market?
So there's a couple ways you can do this. You can be very strategic, do hours and hours of, well, with AI, it's way easier now, but to do, hours of research and keyword planning, or you can just create the content, put it out in the world and see who the winners are. So my method was more like, okay, I'm just a dumb kid from upstate New York who grew up in the middle of the woods. Like, I don't know anything about this stuff. I'm learning as I go. Like, I don't have a marketing degree. I've just hacked this together by trial and error. And my philosophy has always been, and this is why I would believe I win versus everyone else in the insurance industry, which I do. I've literally created YouTube channels that generate more than 500,000 views and 25, 30 plus inbound leads twice in 2 different decades.
Yeah.
So, this stuff works. Like just put it out there. You have no idea what the winners and losers in content are going to be. Nobody does. All these jerks online that tell you like they can give you the 7-step hack to the perfect they can't. What you don't know is those guys create thousands of iterations of, these like professional go viral people. They are not producing one piece of content and putting it out and hoping it goes viral. They are literally producing thousands of iterations of a piece of content across multiple platforms and then taking the winners and losers and leveraging them in their highest impact channels. Like these operations are insane. So the idea that an insurance agent who has 10 bazillion things to do to actually run their business is then going to know how to target a well put together, SEO friendly viral, hit to your audience is bananas. It's just not going to happen. So just produce the content, just pump it out the door. And what's going to happen is the good pieces of content are going to rise to the top. The bad piece of content are going to fall to the bottom. But if you play the volume game, it doesn't matter. Just get it out there. And the last thing I'll say on this part is, and I particularly like video for this, and we can get into why, but with video, it's often faster to create than text. ChatGPT and AI has changed that a little bit, although a lot of that AI slop is useless anyways if you're not doing it right. And we can talk about prompting too if you want, but with video, they get to see my face. So you asked a question about trust or made a comment about trust. Here's how I think about this. I think of generating inbound leads like a video game. And I'm not even a big video game guy personally, but I think of it like the game is every prospect in the world starts at 0 associated to your business. And our goal in marketing is to get that person from 0 to 100. When they hit 100, they buy. 100 trust, they buy. Why do insurance agents like referrals? Partially because they're lazy, but more because a referral comes in at 80, 90, 100% on our fictional trust meter. No wonder we love them. We don't actually have to sell them, right? They're already there. We just, hey, how are you? great to meet you. Great. Here's my policies. Tim Jones that I play golf with told me to do business with you. So here it is. Have a nice day. And we're like, look at how good an insurance salesman I am. I crushed it today, right? Like, no, referrals are awesome. We need as many referrals as we can get. But the reason we like them is because they come in very high on the trust meter. Cold calls start very low on the trust meter. With inbound, what I'm trying to do is get someone to, when they fill out a form, pick up the phone, text us, however your preferred or, omni-channel inbound capture is, like, I want them coming in as high on that trust meter as possible. Because the higher they come in on that trust meter, the less work my reps need to do, right? The more advising, upselling, cross-selling they can do, the less selling the client on why they should do business with us. We waste so much time on why a prospect should do business with our agency and so little time relatively on actually solving their problems. And which I get. If you got to spend so much time wedging your way in and getting an opportunity and, getting in the mix, and now it's like you've spent so much time there that when it comes to actually doing the work that we're supposed to do, it's just like, here, they need this, run me 3 quotes and give me these limits, and off it goes. And that's a very difficult, that's why, those hit ratios on cold calling are what, low. If you're in the 20s on qualified prospects, you're probably doing well, if not a little lower. And, but with inbound, we would take reps in at Rogue Risk. And again, I'll be quiet after this, but we would take reps in at Rogue Risk, oftentimes CSRs. So our number one, most of my sales team was made up of single moms or moms with young kids, because most independent insurance agencies punt these women because they can't work standard 9-to-5s, even though they're incredibly talented. Kid gets sick, they got to go to the doctors or pick them up from school or whatever goes on, because kids are a disaster. Like, they would get grinded on, or they wouldn't be able to get sales jobs, or they would simply just be let go because they can't keep. So I would hire these women, give them flexible schedules, and they'd be killers. But so I would take these women who had never sold before. Their first 3 months, they would average somewhere between a 30 to 40% close ratio on qualified leads. And by the end of 6 months, through our inbound sales process that we would teach them, they would be closing north of 80%. And that's how we grew. We averaged 81 point something percent on all qualified inbound leads at Rogue Risk.
Yeah. So, and we say that here a little differently, but what you're saying totally makes sense at like 100%. We like to call it, we don't do discovery calls, we do onboarding calls, right? I mean, if you're on a call saying, oh, what's your pain points? Like, you're late, you're late to the game. And so we like to do that. Our journey to digital sales was a little different, but still out of necessity is I started in 2007. We've been selling outside of our state since day one, because we do a lot of real estate and we do a lot of tribes. And so I was just burnt out, like traveling out of state all the time, and all our real estate clients are out of state. And then when kind of right before COVID, I thought, okay, there's got to be a better way. Got trained on Zoom and things like that. I couldn't get anybody on it. And then soon as COVID hit, it was like, all right, game on, and interest rates went down. And so just explosion in our real estate practice, right? I like digital sales for the first meeting. We're in the large, complex sales, but the principles apply. We want to make virtual your home court. We want to make it Lambeau Field in February, and because it's a neutral site, at least the client or the prospect feels that, but it removes all the emotional convincing and this and that. And this is what I want to talk to you about. So you talked about the trust meter. Trust is always in motion, up or down, depending on kind of what's going on. But so is value. What clients value is always in motion. I make the argument, like, what's more valuable, a 8-pound diamond ring or an 8-pound gallon of water? Well, if you're in the desert for 7 days,
Depends if you're thirsty or not.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so for you, what do you think? Now let's fast forward to your business. You do TED Talks, your podcast is massive. You have an AI business. Let's talk about value. What do you think people, clients value in 2026? And then we can talk about a little bit of AI and what are the human skills that are going to transcend, or that are transcending right now.
Yeah. Um, this answer is going to sound cheeky. I do not mean it to be. Um, I don't know. So I just ask them and listen. I don't mean that to be trite or cheeky. This took me a long time to get to. So I was trained on, my initial training from my father-in-law was very much like the wedge kind of training, right? Get in, make your opponent, your competitor look bad, find the gaps, all this stuff.
Fear and force. No thanks.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just not my way. And I also don't love, like, if I'm using all these hardcore psychology tactics and, like you said, fear and urgency and pain and all this kind of stuff. And not that pain isn't important, but I like repositioning pain as value, as you have. The problem is, you bring in a customer that way, that customer is you now have a fearful, urgent, urgency, anxiety, stress client that you just brought in. And yeah, you feel great, but they feel like they just got, wrung out like a wet towel to be brought in the door. And that's no good. I just don't think that's a good way to start a relationship. We say we're like relationship. I'm a relationship-based salesman, but let me tell you why you're such a jerk for doing business with this other person. Like, I don't know. There's a big disconnect for me there. Okay. So, in our process, our sales process, I tested every single word of our script, literally every word. I would have different reps working different scripts, taking literally sentences out and moving sentences around in the process. I don't know that you could get to 80, +% close ratio doing it any other way. I think you have to do it that way. And the biggest leap for us, the biggest single change, was when we started every call with one simple, like, kind of opening. Hi, Jason. My name is Ryan. Thank you for choosing Rogue Risk. What's going on? How can I help? And then shut the up. Shut up. And this was the hardest thing to train my team on, right? This was the hardest thing, because if you can say in a confident yet casual way, hey, what's going on? How can I help? They will barf the entire answer on you if you can just be quiet long enough. It then just becomes a game of how long can you be quiet? They will barf everything. They will, even if they pause, just be quiet. I'd be like, I'd be on calls with my reps, like listening to them, and they'd be looking at me, and I'd be like, don't you open your mouth. You know what I mean? Like, they'd go quiet for a second, like, just wait. And then all of a sudden you'd get, yeah, and like, they never get back to me on time with COIs. Bingo! Like, we got you. They just gave you the freaking Indiana Jones tumbler unlocked to the treasure. Like, there it is right there. Like, but when I listened, so I got this amazing education early in my career when I was with trustedchoice.com. We were one of the largest lead generators for independent insurance agencies at the time. And one of the things that we would do is we would pass live call transfers. And the team, we would listen to those calls, mostly for quality assurance purposes as to whether or not that was a qualified lead. But we would also get to hear how agents answered inbound calls. And we want to barf our experience. We want to barf our number of carriers we have. We want to start solutioning the problem, even though we don't know even what the problem is or even what policies they're interested in some cases. Like, we want to rush to be like, look how good I am at this. I'm so good. Like, you need to. That is the absolute worst. This is the worst possible thing you can do. Ask a simple, open-ended question and be quiet. It becomes this weapon. You just look at them. Lean back in your chair. If you're in person, just sit there and look at them and just wait. And they will just keep talking and keep talking. And you just get deeper and deeper into what their true problems are. And then, the reason that we would close is I would take, once we got to about 3 pain points, I would say you don't really need more than 3 is basically what we found. If they kept going, you write them down, but you really only need 3. Everything else, once they give you those pain points, everything else is just semantics. We just have to get through it. Because once you get to the end, you're not selling them on a Hartford BOP and comp and progressive. You're just like, hey, you told me that reactive service really bothers you and that you really just want to know that somebody's kind of got your back. Well, hey, every other year, regardless of what happens, we're going to take a full look. And if any year your policy package goes up more than 10%, we're automatically going to re-rate you. And we'll let you know when that happens. How does that sound? Great. And you also told me that COIs, really important. Getting on and off jobs is important. Getting paid, like that kind of stuff. We have a 24/7, 2-hour turnaround time. You'll have a text message number and an email number that you can send that to at any time, any day, and you'll get it turned around in 2 hours. We're able to do that through a VA in off hours. But how does that sound? Great. I'm not even talking about the premium or the carrier because they don't care. We care. It's our job to care. Customers do not care they don't care what company they're with. They don't care what the premium is. If they believe that you have their back, then everything you tell them is right. Because they don't know. They don't know if 6,000 or 16 is the right number. They have no idea. They know relative to what they're paying now, I guess, but they don't know what the right number is. They could have shitty coverage. It's not going to cover a single thing on their policy. And if you're a true trusted advisor and you're really trying to help them, then you need to offer the more expensive policy with the coverage they actually need. Well, how do you relate that? The only way they're going to buy that is if they trust you. And the only way they're going to trust you is if you're listening to what their problems actually are, letting them speak, giving them space, and addressing the things that are important to them, not us. And that's how I find value and deliver it back to the customers.
Yeah, I think curiosity is just undefeated, number one.
Yeah.
So I think that's just so cool that you shared that. There's so many different ways, I have a lot of questions for you, but I do want to transition, unless you want to talk more about that, Jason. I was going to go to some AI stuff.
Yeah,
but.
I was tracking with AI myself. So
Okay. So on the AI front, we're obviously all in. We believe it to really, obviously, more than just disrupt. It's going to change. It is changing the world. Just in the last 6 months, I mean, talk about acceleration. Cool stuff comes out every 3 weeks. Someone says, Claude's better, Grok's better, ChatGPT. Well, Claude is the best right now, as of this week.
Yeah.
And but for you, like, and maybe we got to get his opinion, but what would you do if you were a new advisor for AI? Number one, and then number two, what will humans be able to? What are the skills humans should focus on right now to transcend AI?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that in reverse order if it's okay with you.
Dude, you're our guest. You do whatever you want.
So when I'm doing a keynote for agency owners or carrier execs or any type of leadership oriented keynote, I usually do a keynote, some version of the idea of what I call human optimized agency. So I think about AI first, I just have to say this. If anyone is saying to you guys who are listening to this show, AI is not going to replace people, people who use AI are going to replace people, they are selling you something. That is a crock of shit. AI is absolutely going to take jobs.
What would you say, Jason? Say it again louder so people in the back can hear it.
That's right.
Yeah, AI, guys, AI is taking jobs. All these consultants and thought leaders that are running around they're trying to placate you. They're trying to buy into your nostalgia and desire to not have to change. AI is coming like an absolute tidal wave. Like the tidal wave that took out the ancient civilization that used to exist, that everyone talks about on Joe Rogan and Graham Hancock and all these amazing ancient civilization podcasts.
You said we could talk about it. You said we could talk about ancient aliens.
So is there really technology buried below the pyramids?
I'm going to put a pin in that because I would love to come back to that topic. I could do that one all day. But so to answer this question, yes. So I think AI is coming for our jobs. Okay, if you are a TPS report stamper, and are unwilling to transition to a job that focuses on one of the three categories or all three of the categories of a human optimized agency, you're toast. Like as a leader, I would be actively looking to replace you today because any transactional work needs a human in the loop, but one human, not five. So, this is absolutely positively, you're in trouble if you're in that space. There's only three things that I believe humans do better than AI will be able to do in the standpoint of what we do for a living in insurance. build relationships, solve problems, and sell shit. So when I was in a leadership position at Rogue, when I advise leaders today, when I work with different companies today, one of the first things I'll have them do, depending on what the problem is audit their team's time. Simple piece of paper with 15-minute slots from start to finish, and just every 15 minutes write in basically what you did during that time. And then collect all those, and as a team, you start to go through them. And what you want to do is find the things that are not building relationships, solving problems, or selling stuff, and then start to dig in one transactional process at a time and just replace that process with either automation or AI.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Because I found this stat that I cannot find again. And I promise, swear to God, I read this. I cannot find it. It's absolutely killing me. But before I started Rogue, this was like 2018, I found this stat that the average CSR in the insurance industry spends, and it spends approximately 20 minutes on average on a service task. So just, take all the different types of service tasks. It's, a little over 20 minutes is the average. And of that, 5 minutes of the 20 are spent interacting or communicating with the customer, and 15 minutes are spent transacting. So doing all the other stuff that it takes to accomplish the goal. We need to flip that on its head. Think about how much more cross-selling, how much more upselling, how much more prospecting. Think about how much more revenue generation could happen in a business if every client transaction came with, essentially 75% of the time spent actually interacting and getting to know the person. And, oh, you have a kid that owns a business, and oh, your uncle's got a plumbing business. Great. Oh, hey, we've been talking about this umbrella for 2 years. It's really time. Liability claims are going through the roof. We got to put this in place to give you some rigidity to your business, some foundation to your business. It's like, that's where the value comes from. But because we're just so willing to accept garbage tech and garbage systems, and we're so willing to consider being busy, being valuable, that we have allowed our industry average to be, we only spend 25% of the time with the customer. We're trusted advisors. Everybody listening to this podcast, if they were in a room, would thump their chest and be like, yeah, we're trusted advisors. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a producer. I'm a trusted advisor. And then they spend 25% of their time with the customer and 75% of their time doing transactional bullshit. And that, to me, is an indictment on leadership. We have to find those systems and replace them with either AI or automation or a VA, right? But our high-value American employees should be focused on building relationships, solving problems, and selling shit as much as possible. And through that audit, you can find where people are losing the most time, and it just becomes a priority list. Don't try to do them all at once. You don't need to do them all at once. Just make a list. Maybe there's 7, maybe there's 20. Start with the highest value one and just start ticking them off. And in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, you will see the velocity of business that comes that's hitting your agency to skyrocket, because your people are maximizing their time in the spaces that actually produce income and revenue.
I love that. Who cares about the new producers? I want to ask you another question. And then if you want, we can go back. We just had our sales summit this week, and our theme was transactional to transformational. Our definition in the simplest form is transactions move product, transformational moves people. How does that sit with you?
I think it depends on the product and what you're trying to do. If you're writing small commercial, you don't need to be transformational. They're not looking for that. So I think it depends on what your client is looking for. If I'm a middle market plumbing contractor with 7 trucks and I'm working in multiple states, I kind of want that white glove. Hey, make sure if something happens, this is my family legacy. I don't want a workers' comp claim to take us down or a large loss or something like that. Completely different experience. And I completely agree with you that transformational is the way to be. But if you're just blasting out, $1,000 workers' comp policies for small businesses, it's not even that transformational is wrong. There's no wrong or right. They just don't want that. They just need the policy that they can, operate their business. They just don't care. So I think it really depends on your market space. I think if you're writing Main Street personal lines, I think there's less and less value attached to being a trusted advisor in that space. If you're high net worth, there's trusted advisor is all they want, right? They over-index on what that value is. So how you define your customer experience, your buying journey, and your sales process are really determined by the customer set that you're going after and the experience that they want, not the experience you want, the experience they want. So the reason I put that in there is for a long time in our industry, I would get pushback specifically, and I get heckled at gigs, so which is really wild to think about, because a lot of people, they're like, I do my best selling face to face, right? That's real. That's building relationships is face to face.
In a room with them.
I will tell you that if you try to write my insurance and you force me to come sit down with you face to face, I will never do business with you. It's not that I don't value what you do. It's not that I don't want good products. I'm busy. I don't want face to face.
Amen.
You might work best face to face, but as your potential customer, that's not what I want. So you have one or two options there. Okay. Option number one is I drastically reduce my market TAM, my total addressable market, by saying I'm only going to do business with people that are face to face. That's how I like to work. There is nothing wrong with that, but understand you're probably limiting yourself to a low level of linear growth and you've drastically reduced your total addressable market, your TAM. I would advocate in 2026 for, I hate this word, but it's probably the best word to use, more of an omni-channel approach. You have to be willing to communicate with people via text, Facebook, Facebook Messenger, email, phone, Zoom. You know what I mean? Like, what do they want, right?
Yeah.
So how do they want to interact? You might have one person that's like, you know what? We don't need to talk in person. But phone call is perfect. I get all over the phone. I can follow along on my sheet. We're great. You could have someone else who doesn't even want to speak to you. They're just like, hey, just email back and forth. Like, I used to get people who'd be like, if someone only wants to email me, then that's bad business. They're a tire shopper and I don't want them. And I was like, fine, send them to me. I'll write them. I'm licensed in all 50 states. You know what I mean? Like, I'll take them. I don't care. Why are they bad? Because they want to communicate via email. Like, they're probably busy. Maybe they work in an office that they're trying to do business with you, but they can't be on the phone for personal calls. So don't do business with them. Or, hey, let's force them to have to call me early or on their lunch break or at night when they don't want to talk to me because I have to talk to them on the phone. To me, that's all ego. It's all ego. If you really want to grow at scale, flex to what your customers want. It doesn't mean you can't have core values. It doesn't mean you can't have a philosophy and a way that you do business. But particularly from a communication and customer experience standpoint, flexibility today is almost like just the bar for getting in the game. Inflexibility is it's almost unacceptable at this point.
Yeah, we've talked a lot also about the status quo bias, right, Ryan? Just the overall status quo bias and kind of unpacking that, relearning that, and really kind of trying to change that paradigm quite a bit. What has been your experience on just helping organizations or people through their existing status quo, both as the buyer and the seller?
Yeah. So the buyers that come in your door are going to be a direct result of what you put out. So the buyers are much easier. So external status quo is much easier than internal status quo. So if I want people who are willing to communicate digitally, I need to communicate. I need to put marketing, advertising, messaging out into the world that communicates that I like to do business digitally. So people who like to do business with digitally will self-filter into my business. If I only like to meet in person, I need to put out content that reflects that. And people who want that face-to-face handshake, personal experience, come in and sit down and bullshit for an hour and a half, those are the people who will select in, right? So external, in my opinion, is very easy. Internal is much more difficult, especially if you're dealing with people who have had some level of success in a previous age of existence. So, you know, I think we just leapfrogged one of the fastest ages of human existence ever, and it was the 20-year period from 2020 to or from 2000 to 2020, which I think we can call the digital age. Everything previous is analog, right? We hit 2000, we hit the digital age. Everything becomes digitalized, internet, VoIP phones, automation, CRMs. And then 2020, 2021, we get AI, and we are in a completely different world now. And my point in saying this is if internal operators, producers, et cetera, CSRs have had success in either digital or the analog age, it's very hard if they're carrying a book of business that, you know, makes them comfortable to get them to change in the age of AI, but they're going to have to. They're just absolutely going to have to. And so in that regard, and, you know, this is a place that I've made a tremendous number of mistakes. So I don't profess to have all the answers here, but I do have some things that I found. I think in general, broad stroking, we are very bad at people management as an industry, particularly producers. I think we get very nervous as leadership that good producers are going to leave. There is this hiring people is hard thing, which is the biggest crock of shit I've ever heard. Hiring is not hard at all. We make it hard, but that's a different story. But the people that you have, we just have to clearly, I mean, if you want your organization to change, you have to be willing to let go of people who don't want to change. And I am not advocating firing people, but there needs to be clear expectations set on what you need. If you're taking someone who is a ground and pound cold caller and you're saying, no, we're going to a digital format where we're going to start creating a massive number of leads for you and we need you to knock them down, we have to communicate that. We have to set a compensation plan that properly incentivizes the new activities. You cannot apply a classic compensation model to an inbound sales model, just for instance. And then we need to understand what it looks like if things don't go well. So properly setting expectations and then holding people accountable is how you change culture. And the people that don't want to come along for the ride are going to, again, they're going to self-select out. They're not going to want to adhere to, you know, what new policies, et cetera. I'll tell you one thing that really helped us at Rogue get buy-in from our producers was I created a profitability scorecard. So I took all the expenses associated with an individual producer. So their salary, their commissions, their benefits, you know, everything that they got on a month-to-month basis. And then I'd take everything that they've brought in, new, renewal, and we basically every month would have this tracker, which was a snapshot of that particular month, and then an ongoing scorecard, which managed how much profit, you know, net, I guess. Well, that would probably be gross profit because we haven't taken out taxes or anything like that. But gross profit will say, how much gross profit are you contributing back to the business? And what I saw were two really interesting reactions to that. High achievers, elite performers, they were intoxicated with it because look how much gross, look what I'm bringing to the business. Man, I'm profitable. I'm an important part of the company. I'm helping grow the company. I'm putting money back into the company. Awesome. And then you get another group who's maybe sitting on an old book, not putting new business on the books. Maybe their book is starting to tail off because they've gotten a little too comfortable. And you throw that profitability score up there and it's not as high as some of the young people, or it's negative, right? You actually show them that they're costing you money. And the conversation around buy in or get out becomes much easier because it's all right there for them. So I guess to finish that comment, I'm a huge fan of transparency in the numbers of the agency. I think it creates massive buy-in.
You're speaking Jason's language for sure. Also, when you were talking, this quote just kept coming to mind. It's clarity is actually kind. Clarity is kind. Because stagnation is worse than failure, because failure has a villain. It can give you clarity, and can force to do some stuff out of necessity and other things. Stagnation is the real enemy. And, that's a lot of times hard to diagnose, but it goes back to your 3 points though, why stagnation is so poor and why you have to develop these human emotional intelligence, or I call it discernment. I think discernment is going to be like the number one leadership skill and just human skill. It's really hard to see things as they really are and see things as they really will be at the right time. It just takes a long time to get there. And I don't know, and no one will ever arrive and be perfect at discernment. But I think, with the 3 things that you said, definitely. I mean, solving problems, obviously, that's big time discernment, selling, building relationships. So this has been
no man's land, right? Got this no man's land creates. There's so much ambiguity there. There's so much friction there. There's so much.
It distorts
tension.
value. You overvalue the wrong things.
Yeah, and there's so much entitlement that exists inside of that, purgatory environment.
Emotional purgatory.
That's my new word, my new term, by the way, Ryan. Emotional purgatory.
I love it, and I think, to be honest with you, I can't think of a better term to describe it. It's bitterness and resentment from management, and it's entitlement, envy, frustration from the team member, and then they just kind of circle around each other, and both sides, as you said, get in this emotional purgatory where neither one really wants to deal with it, but everyone feels the tension, and it's not good for the company. It's not good for the individual. I think especially for any younger leaders or newer leaders who are listening to this, sometimes letting an employee go is doing them a favor. And I don't mean that in like the snarky way. I mean,
that's for them.
If someone doesn't culturally fit in your business, even if they're a nice person, if they're just, they're more of a laissez-faire, or they're just, ADHD, off the rails, hard charger, and it pisses it, whatever that issue is, or like sometimes letting them go is the best thing you can do. And if you do feel bad, because a lot of times it's emotions is why we don't let people go, because the math is always easy, is like, help them find a new job, introduce them to a couple other agencies. So they're landing on their feet. Like, you don't just have to be like, get out, I hate you. You can be like, hey man, this isn't working, right? I'm going to give you 2 weeks of severance, and I got 3 agencies for you to call tomorrow, and I'll give you great recs. I think you're a great person, you just don't fit here. Like, it doesn't have to be World War III. It doesn't have to be they hate you. Like, they're just not a good fit for you. And the faster you can get them out, the better. Because I know on 2 different occasions, I had real cancers in Rogue Risk. And both times I waited too long.
We all do.
Both times, the minute they were gone,
you felt way better.
The rest of the team was like, thank God.
You can feel the energy. Like, it's
sure.
crazy. You walk in and it's not as heavy. And you mentioned something we talk about too, like there's 2 different kinds of this friction. Friction is just a data point. Doesn't mean it's good or bad, but there's frontline friction that's real stuff that salespeople want their leaders and want owners to be like, look, we need this AI tool. And then there's I call front mind friction that is all in the producer's head. That, we need better leads. We need better this. We need better this. And so
if only if I had,
right? Emotion, so that's why this discernment principle has my mind exploding over the last little bit of like, okay, a leader needs to be able to discern what's frontline friction. Let's get our people what they need and what they want to accelerate the business. And what is just front mind, right? Because most friction does live in your mind. So it's just, that's something I think leaders should really consider and study and think about, but just know that it's going to require some pain to grow.
Yeah.
to grow through that.
I love your discernment thing. I literally couldn't agree with you more. I'm going to throw a second bucket on that. That I think is another, I would put discernment, while maybe some leadership, consultants or whatever would say it's always been a thing. I think you're right that this is a growing skill, a growing in importance skill is this idea of discernment. Completely and utterly agree. I'm going to give you one more that I think is, we'll call it new as of the age of AI. And that's this idea of orchestration.
Love it.
No, like if I were, let me put this the right way. Today, I can spin up a brand new website with all the content, all the imagery, all the colors, my logo already installed, SEO optimized, and I can pump out 1,000 pages in a weekend. Could do that. I built myself a personal finance app 3 weekends ago. Put out, I have a side quest that I'm on. I'm building a podcast network with a business partner of mine, Mick Hunt. We spun that all the applications, all the stuff that has to go with that. We spun that up in 2 days. So the ability to build simple, not core systems are different, but to build supporting systems that amplify our efficiency and effectiveness. Maybe it takes a week, 2 or 3 days today. Eventually it will take 4 hours. Then it'll take an hour. Then your AI personal assistant that follows you around the internet will just know to create the thing because it feels that you have a problem. So building the things is no longer the skill. The skill is understanding and articulating the problem and being able to orchestrate the tools and the people necessary to execute at the highest efficiency and effectiveness. That's the leadership skill of the future. It's understanding that I have all these chess pieces. It's like being an army general, right? Which I did not serve. So if there's any generals listening, you can push back on my tactical guidance here. But like I have, all these battalions and, tank division and, whatever. And I'm not shooting any guns. I need to know we need to push up here, right? We need to support that with a supply chain. I have infantry over here that need to attack this. And for an insurance agency, that's how is my marketing team, what are they creating and at what scale that drives what kind of leads into my producer force? And how do I need to create a secondary campaign, which may take a separate person or a new tool to push into my, my tribal team, right? Because that probably is a whole different set of branding and marketing or at least messaging for sure, right? And it's the orchestration of these things becomes the skill, and being able to fit the right technology. What do we build? What do we buy? What do we rent? Right? What people need to be involved? What data sets do I need to bring in? It's truly orchestrating the business. And, I think that I highly advocate that people on the executive team, and I know you both have your own books, but I highly advocate that people do not continue to work in the business if they're in like executive leadership positions. Mostly because I think the demand for leadership is so strong today that, and there's such a lack of great leadership that we need our leaders primarily focused on that function, or they should primarily focus on selling or whatever the thing is that they do. I think there can be issues, and I'm not saying you two guys, but this does happen with smaller agencies where you get your principal is also your number one producer. And then they wonder why every system is broke. Nothing works. They're constantly dealing with problems. Their text messages filled up with customer issues. And it's like, because you would rather sell than lead, which is fine. But those are two different things. So I think this idea of orchestration is going to become a paramount leadership characteristic moving into the future.
I agree. And before I'll kick it to Jason here, I was at a Genius Network event, which is a mastermind group based out of Tempe, Arizona. Some of the best entrepreneurs in the world are part of it. And they said exactly what you just said at their conference in November, called it, digital orchestration, or, being able to know how the brass has to play and how this person needs to sing, and that's the tenor and that's the baritone, and you need to be able to bring everything in digitally. And then they also talked about discernment a little bit. They said it in a different way, but if you can orchestrate, and orchestrate sounds like manipulation, it's not. if you can truly orchestrate people and you can orchestrate the systems and the idea, that right there, I think is the next decade of business.
You have execution. You've always had execution risk in all business since the beginning of business, right? Fundamentally, it's just that now with all the additional resources around you, that execution risk becomes much more narrow instead of more broadly because of the pace of play and the boldness that organizations need to have to move forward in this space or any business for that matter. It's just the speed of play has gotten so much faster. So
I think that's very smart.
The execution has got to be there.
If I was running an agency today, I would build OpenClaw personal AI agents for at least every producer, if not every customer-facing employee that I had in the business. I just think that the future is we have an AI agent that follows us around the internet. It's on our phone, it's on our computer, it's on our smartwatches, it's on our wearables, it's in our car, and that agent is just going to follow us around. And, you know, like, so most of the people listening will not understand the nerdiness of OpenClaw in particular, so don't get hung up on the name. But it's essentially a true agent system. So what that means is I just say, add Jason to my prospect list. The AI knows to go out, find his LinkedIn, find his website, find his Instagram, find any other public records, extract all of the relevant contact data, pertinent data about them, pull them in, log into the CRM, create a prospect card, create the prospect card, set a follow-up date, add all the pertinent information into the record, and fires off the initial prospecting email that starts the sequence simply because I said, hey, add Jason to this, to our prospect, right? That's what an AI agent can do. It's taking a complex high-level task, and then it breaks it down into sub-agents, essentially, that then execute each one of those individual functions, all being orchestrated by the master agent. Now, to humans, we're doing that all the time, constantly in our brain natively, right? But to have a digital tool be able to do this is absolutely insane. And if at the same time, every email is being cataloged, every conversation is being cataloged to understand and score how you're making phone calls. The AI is giving you feedback on, hey, Ryan, you said silence is a weapon, but geez, man, you talked right over the top of him before he got to his third pain point. Like, these are the kind of things that the AI can be constantly running alongside you, helping you get better, helping take care of some of these complex tasks. And, it's just time and energy for the most part to set these things up. And if you had every producer with their own AI agent, right? Obviously, you'd put some structure around it, right? There's some security stuff. I mean, you want to do it smart. I'm not just saying willy-nilly, but like, just think about the insights, the amount of content you get. You'd be able to extract all the questions that you're receiving from customers and pulling that out and creating content around it and creating follow-up drip campaigns and targeted remarketing. And I'm a little down the road. I mean, all this stuff takes time, but like, when I start to visualize what it really means, like, you could truly have your producer never come into the office ever again, because everything they need is either on their phone in their agency management system, communicating with their AI agent, or they're talking to the person right here. And they're just constantly working. They drive by a business. Hey, add Johnson Plumbing to my prospecting list. I just saw they have 4 trucks in the parking lot, and I really think we could do something for them. Bam. And your bot goes off, does all the proper research, puts it in the prospect, puts a reminder for you. And now you come back to the office to make your calls the next day, and there's Johnson Plumbing sitting right on the top of the list to give a phone call for with all the research they did. Like, this is not science fiction, guys. This is all at your fingertips today. Like, you can do everything I just said today. It's just going to take, dedication and conviction from a leadership team. There are going to be mistakes. There's going to be shit that doesn't work. There's going to be frustrations. But if you can start to understand how to play this game today, right? We're not even at the crazy shit, guys. Like, it feels like AI feels like magic to a certain extent right now. Like every model every day is better. Like, you guys said Claude Opus 4.6 is the best model. That was the best model yesterday. Google just came out with Gemini 3.1 Pro, which is supposedly another 15x, whatever. And it's like, it's crazy. And we're just getting started. So I think digging in, getting your hands dirty, using these tools, seeing what they can do, figure out how to make a Claude skill, figure out how to set up a simple MCP protocol connection that scrapes LinkedIn for email addresses. Like, there's tutorials everywhere, and a little bit of FAFO here, I think, is going to go a very long way.
Man, I think we could sit here for hours, Ryan.
You're speaking our language.
Yeah,
we have to tell our listeners, or at least our employees, our producers, that we've never met, because we're speaking the same language. They're going to think we planted you. They're going to think we're paying you, which we should anyways, because this was a great.
No, this is phenomenal, guys. I'm so glad that you're doing this. I mean, these are the kind of conversations that we need to have in our space. And the last thing I'll say is, I sometimes get accused of being like a little gloomy, and that is not the way that I feel at all. I like to live in reality. That's why, I'm a conservative, because I have to live in reality in order to operate. So like, I look at reality and I see these things like people that use AI, AI is not going to replace people. People that use AI is going to replace people. No, the reality is an AI agent can do today almost off the rack 20% of the work that certainly service professionals do at independent insurance agencies today, right? That's reality. So if that's the reality, let's not get upset about it or messed up about it. Let's figure out how to capitalize on it, because the chaos that's coming, and trust me, chaos is coming. Chaos leads to so much opportunity. So much opportunity. There are so many guys and gals who are going to look at this space and they're not going to want to put up with it. I just had a buddy who operates on the sell side of a sell side brokerage tell me a story that he had a 43-year-old dude just up and sell his agency because he's like, I can't keep up with this anymore. I can't do it. He's like, I can't do it. He's like, it's just not fun. He's like, I'm going to get as much as I can from my agency. I'm out. I'm doing something else. Now, that's one guy, one anecdotal story. What about every 65-year-old who absolutely loathes technology, and now every, talking head idiot like myself is telling them that they got to over-index on AI? Do you think that they want to spend that time? Because I can tell you for sure today, guys, for sure, if you are not technologically enabled, your multiple is going down. So you missed the window to max out your multiple with a beat-up, friction-filled analog agency. If that's what you're operating right now, you have missed the window to max your multiple. You are going to get a worse multiple than the guy down the street today. I can confirm that through multiple sources, both on buy side and sell side. So the you guys need to update or your multiple is going to be hit thing that people have been talking about for a decade, that is happening now. You have missed the window. So you have two options. Get out now at probably the highest multiple you're going to get, because that multiple is only going to go down if you're analog and not operating with workflows and automations. So now is probably your last chance to get out at a decent multiple, because it's only going to go down. Or you have to engage in the revolution. Start finding ways to automate, make sure you have emails, have a simple drip campaign, a newsletter, make sure you can communicate via text message. There's ways. It's not like you have to go full-blown, fully remote digital AI agency, but you either should probably get out now or start making these changes, because the reality is the money's not going to be there for you. And I hate that that's the case, but the last swan song of the analog agency getting a max multiple was probably gone 2023.
Agreed. Is there anything else you want to leave with our listeners? Obviously, where can we find you? You mentioned, are you on some social media platform we've never heard of yet, because you're always 10 years ahead?
Yeah, I try not to take on new social media platforms anymore. I have enough to do. I'd say, so findingpeak.com, that's the podcast. I also have a newsletter that goes out. That's probably a great place to start. Highly recommend the podcast. I also do a lot of leadership and growth consulting. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, it's Ryan@findingpeak.com. Email me questions, whatever. I'm happy to help you guys. Anybody that does email me, I have like a PDF. I'll send it to you guys too. I have a PDF that works through like our one call close script. Happy to send it to anybody. I created it and share it for free because I want the industry to crush inbound. If you're going to put in the work from a content perspective and my flow can help somebody, I want them to do better. So just email me, Ryan at Finding Peak. Happy to send it to you. And yeah, I appreciate it, guys. This has been great. You obviously caught me in a very chatty mood today, but I love it. I love that you're doing it.
Passion, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, we love it. Thanks for your time.
Ryan.
Thanks for your energy. Yeah, it was great to spend some time with you, Ryan.
Yeah, you too.